Hi everyone, welcome to my very first episode of Edit Your Photos with Samantha. I'm Samantha. I'm super excited about this. I just had this idea. I wanted to do something to help beginners, and I get messages periodically about how to accomplish little tasks. So I thought if I did something and tried to turn it into a platform where people could go and see me do this, it would also stop the repeat questions. So I thought it would be fun, and we're going to give it a shot. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, I won't do it anymore. But so that being said, if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and give me a like below and a comment, and I'll keep it going. With that said, my very first guest, her name is Lynn. She's a personal friend of mine, and she lives in East Haven, Connecticut with her husband and their cat Bob. Their amazing cat Bob, who they rescued. Basically was a feral cat who was hiding in the shadows in their yard for a long time, and just fostering that relationship with him slowly got him to come in the house, and now he's like this snuggly cat, and it's really cute. So she photographs Bob a lot, but what happened is her husband gave her on their wedding day a D750 for a wedding gift, and she loved photography but never had used a DSLR before, so this is very exciting. And but she didn't really know what she was doing, so I'm super proud of her. In a very short time, 5 months I think since she's received this camera, she's already shooting in manual. Her exposure almost right out of the gate has been spot on. She has a really good eye for it. Where she's getting a little stuck is the retouching piece. So I thought we would try and tackle some of that today. Her question for me was, how do I remove an object from an image? And also, she doesn't quite understand how layers work. So we're going to talk about those things, plus a couple of others. And at the end of the episode, stay tuned, because we had a little glitch. I didn't fully explain something, so we had to sort of do an addendum. It's my first episode. I had to come back and sort of clarify some things. So please watch it all the way through. Otherwise, you're going to have the same problem that she had, and I would hate for that to happen. So just watch the whole thing, and then at the very end, I will show you the image that she edited after our show was over. She went immediately back and took what she learned and edited a shot, that shot. So I show that at the end, and it came out great. She did a great job. So I'll show that. And that's pretty much it. So if you like what you see, like I said, please like below. Feel free to leave a comment. If you would like to be a guest on the show yourself, just shoot me an email. I'll put it in the description there so you can send that, and I'll send you over a link for you to apply. So I hope you like the show. I'm rambling now. I tend to do this. I don't think I have anything else to say. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much. Bye, guys. Hi everyone, this is Samantha with Samantha Net Photography, and you are watching Edit Your Photos with Samantha, and this is our first episode, and this is Lynn, and Hi. She is fairly new with her camera, right?
Yes, yeah, pretty darn new, about 5 months.
Okay, and you got your, everyone heard me talk about how you got your camera as a gift, and the photo we're going to look at is this bluebird that you had some questions about. Now tell me a little bit, if you remember, when you took this photo, did you go out to shoot birds that day, or was this something local in your backyard? Tell me a little bit about the photo.
So I just honestly took this through my living room window. I have a bird feeder. I love taking pictures of birds. I have a ton of different birds that come to the yard because I bribe them. And yeah, I just happened to be, set up and shooting out the window because it was cold out, and got this one.
Well, it's a great picture. And so some of the things that you had questions about were removing, was it these particular twigs right here?
I actually don't mind those too much. I mean, we could.
Was it the one up by his head? Tell me what things specifically you would like to know how to do with this image.
Sure. So I definitely want to, if it's possible, remove the branches that are by his head and face.
Sure.
Those seem distracting. And also, I've been fiddling with Photoshop and Lightroom, but I have no idea how to actually create layers. So being able to separate out the bird from the background or different pieces and adjust them
separately, independently. Yeah. Okay. So what I did was I imported through into Lightroom. So considering that a lot of people that I'm going to be talking with are beginners, I thought most people are going to start in Lightroom and that not everyone may even know how to get it into Photoshop. So I thought I would start at the very beginning. So it's loaded in here into Lightroom, and all you need to do is you can right click and go edit in and edit in Photoshop. So if you have other applications that you edit into, you can do that from here as well. So we're just going to go edit into Photoshop, and so if you had made adjustments prior, have you seen this before? This come up when you?
No, honestly, I didn't know you could even do that.
So oh, good. So we're learning already. Yay. Okay. So let's just say, I'm going to cancel this for a moment, and I just have these little sides minimized, but they are there. Let's go into the develop module, and I'm going to move your little face for a minute.
Wee.
And let's just say we make some adjustments here. So normally the way that I start my process is I do some basic Lightroom adjustments, and then most of my other work is done in Photoshop. But that is not to say that that's the right process or anything like that. Really, it's based on your own workflow. Everybody does things really differently. There's 1,001 ways to get one task done. And that can get very confusing to a beginner, because if you're taught one thing and then someone else does it another way, it can really kind of throw a wrench in your gears.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Let's just say we did a minor edit here. Let's say I'm looking at my histogram, which is up here, and I can see that we do not have a white point and we do not have a black point. And the way that I can see that is there is a space where this ends and the wall begins. So, and there's also a space here. So you do not have a true black or a true white in this image. So let's say we wanted to fix that. We can hold the Alt button and click on the white. You've probably seen this before. Have you seen this?
Not holding the Alt button down, but I played with white.
It gives you a little bit of a cheat. So you hold the Alt and press the whites, and then you start to scroll. And when some white appears in the image, see, now you see it's starting to come through. So that's when you can sort of let go, and you're bringing a white. Now it's not fully white. If we wanted to really make sure we had a white point, we would keep going until we saw white, which is there. And now we want to, but that might be too much. You really have to look at the whole picture. So I would say that's probably too much. I'm going to bring it down to about here. And the same thing with the black. Do you see there's a space there between in the histogram where the histogram ends on the wall? So I'm just going to click on the Alt button again and the mouse and scroll over until I see some black pop up. And there's some black right there.
Look at that.
Now, if I look at that before and after, you see this one looks a little dull now.
Yeah.
Over here. And because now we've got some true white and some true black in there. So now let's say that's the adjustment I want to do, and the rest I want to do in Photoshop. So I'm going to go back to the single view image, which is the loop view. Click on that. And this was our adjusted image. So now I can click either on the photo or on the thumbnail. It doesn't matter which. Both will work. And I'm going to edit in and edit in Photoshop. Now, you have some choices. Edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. Edit a copy, and that is the adjustments will not be visible that we just did. Or edit the original. And I usually never do that because I always like to keep my original. I usually do with my Lightroom adjustments because I want to work on this file, not the other one. So I'm going to click on edit. And here we go. And I'm going to move you again. Move you to about there. All right. So how much of Photoshop have you delved into, Lynn?
A very little.
Okay.
I tried to remove objects, and I don't know if I'm butchering it or I don't know. So, I mean, a little bit, but not very much.
Okay. I'm just going to move my microphone because I realized I put it on my, I use a Wacom tablet for my editing, and I realized my microphone is sitting on it. So pardon me while I just move my microphone over so I have a tablet to work on. So clearly this is my first episode.
Get through it.
All right. We'll get through it. We'll get through it together and with whoever else is watching. Okay. If we get any viewers, I mean, hey, that'll be fantastic. Okay.
It's
So
gonna happen.
what I'm going to do, actually, you know what? Bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm just going to, I think my microphone is still a little far away, so I'm just going to move it one more spot, and then we should be good to continue. Okay. Perfect. Sort of. Okay. I don't want to waste any more time on that. All right. So what we have here is you can set up your Photoshop in a multitude of ways, really. I like to have my layers set over here and my history over here. So just like in Lightroom, every time you make a move, let's say I'm just going to grab a brush, and every time you do anything, now it's recorded in this history tool. So you can click back one and that will get rid of it. The other way that you can get rid of it is Control Z on your keyboard. Now, I don't ever like to do anything on the actual image, and that is when your layers come into play. So what I always do is you have to think of layers like a remember, well, this is going to totally age us, but will age me anyway. Do you remember transparency plastic in elementary school, or was that okay?
No, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so it is like, and for those of you who are like, don't remember this, I'm really sorry, but maybe it will still make sense for you. Back in the day, when I was a little girl, we had these, you could take a photo or a document, and you would put this cellophane, like plastic thing over it, and you would draw on that. And that's how you sort of have to look at layers. So each layer is like that clear piece of plastic that you're making adjustments on. And so you're not really affecting the picture. You're doing all of your adjustments on that other layer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that does make sense.
Okay. So when we want to remove an image, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm going to try without making things too complicated. So I tend to use a lot of the shortcut keys. I will try not to do that in this example, but if you look at me doing something and you say, wait, I totally got lost, how did you do that? Please stop me, because the purpose of this is for you to be able to say, stop. Don't understand what just happened.
I'm totally lost.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got your tools here. Have you explored any of these tools yet?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Okay, great. So this is the clone stamp tool. If you hover your mouse over it, you should also get a little pop-up that tells you that it's the clone stamp tool. There's another way of removing items, which is the patch tool. And if you click and hold that, you'll get a little sub-menu. And there's also the spot healing brush tool and the healing brush tool and the content aware move tool. All of these things can be used to remove an object, including your paintbrush by just painting over an object. So it really depends on the image itself as far as what works the best. Everything up here, the spot healing, the healing, and the patch are sort of, this isn't the correct terminology, but I like to think of those as like the intelligent brushes, because a lot of the times Photoshop will use the information in the area and sort of fill in intelligently what it thinks belongs there. Whereas the clone stamp tool, you're just copying and pasting the same. So like on my keyboard, I'm holding down the Alt button, and then I'm selecting where the area that I want it to clone. So I'm going to say I want to clone this area, and now I'm just tapping with my mouse or my pen on my tablet and say, this is the area I want to clone. Then I release that, and then when I push down, it's now, see the little X there?
Yeah.
Now that's just following, that's telling me that the cloned area, that's the area that it's repeating.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like referencing where it's taking the color from.
Exactly. Now, when you look up here, now have you looked at any of this stuff up here yet?
The only thing I've done really is change the size of the brush.
Okay. So you have two things here within. So this menu will change every time you're on a different tool, right? So this is the menus for the clone stamp tool. Now, opacity is basically what's the percentage that it's replicating. So if I'm going to just bring both of these to 100% for a minute. So let's say I want to, let me just take a blank piece of paper for a moment. I'm just going to fill this with white for a minute. Okay. So now I have a, why isn't it flipping to black? That's very strange. Oh, because I'm not, see, look at that. I'm not on the brush. There we go. What is happening? Oh, I didn't see an under you was a menu pop up.
Oops.
There we go.
My bad.
So, all right. So this will help you really see it a lot easier. All right. So I'm going to use a paintbrush for this just to show you opacity and flow. So right now, bear with me. Okay. So opacity, I'm going to draw at 100% opacity. So that's 100% of the black. Now, if I just wanted 50% of that to come out, 50% will come out. If I only want 14%, you just get a little bit. Do you see that?
Yep.
So then you can that applies in all the different tools. So when you're copying and pasting using your clone stamp, it's the same thing. If you just want to do a little bit at a time versus like that heavy 100%, I will hardly ever clone at 100%. Now, flow just means, so if you're at 100, let's go back to 100. So flow just means it's a gradual increase. So let's see, what's the best way to show you this? I'm going to go back to this 14% or 26%. No matter how many times I go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, it's not going to get darker.
Okay.
Because I've capped it at 26% opacity. However, if I make this 100% and make this 26%, this will 26%, well, close enough. This will start out at 26%, but if I keep going, it's going to keep getting darker. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Well, so that was just the difference between, because you kept, oh no, I'm sorry, you changed flow. Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. Yes. So flow means you can, like if you just want to like start very lightly, but know that if you keep going, it's going to get more and more and more, then you can set your flow. You know, if I set flow 100, it's just automatically going to come out hard and fast. But if I just want to start a little bit at a time and build up, that's what flow is. Opacity caps you. You're capped. So if I say opacity 30%, no matter how many times I go back and forth, it's not going to go higher. So knowing this, so to delete your layers, you can just click on the layer and drag it to the trash. Boop. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.
Okay. And so this was, oops. Okay. So now we have our picture. This is the create new layer button here. So
where are we?
Right here.
Oh, see, yep.
So to start on a blank layer, which is what we want to do to erase anything because we don't want to erase on the bird. We're going to create a new layer. And I'm going to zoom in a bit so that you can see. And to zoom in, there's a lot of ways you can zoom. You can use up here. And I'm using on my keyboard, Control+.
Okay.
Or Control- backs you out. So I'm using Control+. Okay. This is quite close. We probably don't need to be that close, but just for the sake of seeing it, we'll stay there. So I'm going to go into the clone stamp tool. Now you see we've got opacity and flow here. Now, so what I can do is I'm going to make my brush smaller. Now, there's a lot of ways, again, you can make your brush bigger and smaller. I'm on a tablet, so I can just sort of rotate. I have a little like rotating thing here that I can use. But you can also on your keyboard use the open bracket, which is next to the P. So you can hit that for smaller, or you can hit the right bracket to go bigger.
Ah.
Okay.
That's much easier than what I've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the beginning, I used the brackets for a long time until I got my tablet, and now the tablet I just use the rotating thing, whichever. I'm sure I'm butchering that. Sorry. Nobody yell at me about
That's good.
my terminology here. I'm a hack. Listen. Okay. So I'm gonna go at 100 opacity, but I'm gonna go in like maybe 60% flow because I want it to blend. And it's easier to blend things if you're not just going. So if I just came in and said, I'm going to copy this and paste, it's really not a good, you could see it's very obvious. I also started too far away. You want to stay close so that the colors really blend. So to get rid of this, you can go back one over here in your history, but I'm going to click Control Z to undo. Okay. And let's do that again. So I'm going to change my flow to maybe 60 or 70%. I'm going to click the Alt key and I'm going to go kind of close and I'm going to tap and release and I'm just going to, and then I'm going to re-tap. So I don't want to then go over here because I want these colors to match. So I'm going to select over here and blend that in a little bit. And then here and blend that in a little bit. Now, the problem with this is it can look a little sloppy and messy because you've got a lot of gradual colors happening here. It'll work. Like this will work. I'm just resampling, copying, mixing, but it looks a little sloppy. So this is probably not the method that I would use for this, but I just want to show you it's one that you can use and it does work in a lot of situations. But this is very easy. There's not a lot around it. So in this situation, what I would do, so I'm going to go all the way back to when I started my clone stamping. So I'm going to go back to my history and I'm just going to go back to the fresh new layer. What I like to do is, now this is a bit of a trick that I like, and for a beginner this is not something you probably would see many places because it may not be the correct thing, but again I'm a little bit of a hack and I like easy. So I click, this is the lasso tool. So this just helps you make a selection, right? Now, in order to do this, you have to have, now, you know what? Let's keep this simple. Maybe, let me know if this starts to get too complicated and I'll give you another way to do it. So,
I'm still so far, so.
Okay. So in order to use, to do this method that I'm going to show you, you have to have actual pixels there. So I'm not going to be drawing on something. I'm going to tell the computer to analyze what's here and then fill in the blank. But in order to do that, I can't be on a blank layer because it's like that blank cellophane. It's like there's nothing really there. So I'm going to make a duplicate layer of this. So in order to do that, because I still don't want to make any changes to this photo, all you have to do is click on this background layer and drag it to the new layer icon, and it will, you've got now a copy.
Oh.
So now you can do anything you want to this and it's not going to screw up your original.
Wow, okay.
Yep. So what I like to do is take my lasso tool and just select I'm going to go as close as I can to that. We'll come back and fix that. Oops. Well, okay. Do as best as you can. Now you can actually move your selection afterwards by just clicking and moving it around. So I've got a little close there, so I'm just going to move it over a little bit. Now, once you have this, I like to use the shortcut of Shift F5. However, all you have to do is go into your, let's see if I can remember what, hang on, let me just see. Okay. So select, sorry, just pretend you're not seeing all this. I'm so unprofessional.
That's okay. It's like you know it too well.
Yeah. So I want you to know how to get to it without the shortcut. The shortcut is Shift F5. And what we're looking to do is fill the layer. I might have to edit this part out. Where is the fill? I will address this in the edit, but we're going to just skip ahead. And you're going to go, you might want to write this down, but it's Shift F5.
Yep.
Or you can just rewatch this video. And you're going to say, okay, this is the option to fill what I just created. And I want to fill it with what? So here is very simple. What is the content you want to fill? So I can fill it with my foreground color, which is, these are my paintbrush colors over here. So the foreground would be black. The background would be this white. I don't want to do that. I don't want to fill it with black or white. I don't want to fill it with a color or a pattern. I want to fill it with content aware. So content aware, it's going to say, oh, let me analyze what's around me, and I'm going to fill it with what I think should go there. So I'm going to click on that, and I want it to be at 100% opacity. If I had picked something like 50%, I would see what was behind it.
Sure, it would show
it would
through.
be opaque. So I'm going to click OK, and da-da-da. There you go. And you can just do Control D to deselect these marching ants to make them go away.
Oh, that's good to know too.
Yeah. I'm all about the hotkeys. So I like that when you go to a lot of YouTube things, they show you the way to get to it. But once the hotkeys are where it is the best thing to do, because it's a lot of time when you're editing to have to keep going into that menu. So you should definitely take time and look through the menu to see what's there. But once you start learning the hotkeys, I'm hardly ever up there. So yes, Control D gets rid of those marching ants. And you can see it did a really great job. So then you're like, okay, well, we have this stuff down here that still needs some work. So for this is where I would maybe go into my clone stamp. And this is a good size brush, I would say. And I do like, this same thing with a regular brush. You can go up here to your brush options, and you can still, even though we're in the clone stamp, you can still determine how hard the edges are as well as the size of the brush. And I always, no matter what, 80% of the time, use a soft brush always. And if I need it to be a harder edge, I just make the brush smaller, because I think it looks the most natural when you're doing things to have a soft brush, because you won't see those hard edges. So I'm just going to, now sometimes if you're too close, it's almost like you're overanalyzing. So I sometimes will back up, because when the reality is that this is a really small area, and you don't, we want it to look natural, but you could make yourself crazy if you get too close. Sure. So I'm just going to try and, so I'm at 61% flow. I might even go less than that, 40%, and just slowly start to click and select an area, and then, and there you go. So that's that part removed. Now, there is a little bit on him. And also, to move around, you can hold your space bar and you'll get this hand. And then you can just move things around very easily without having to use here. So space bar, you'll get the hand, and then you can just click on your mouse or your pen and move things around.
Much easier.
Yes. So you see there's some color distortion here because the branch did go over his head. Yep. So there's a couple things that you can do with this. One of the easiest things to do would be to create, every action I do, I try and make it a separate layer. So we don't need to be on that other layer, this layer here, that background layer. We can go to this layer that we created and didn't ever do anything with. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to click on the layer, and now we're working on that layer. It's just a clear cellophane sheet of paper. That's all we're doing. And so I'm going to go to my, my paintbrush, and I'm going to go to 100% opacity. But I'm going to go at a really low flow, like 18% flow. And what I'm going to do is make my brush really small. And the same thing, that Alt button is just like on your clone stamp tool. This is how you're going to make your selection. So all I'm going to do is I'm telling Photoshop, I want to pick a color that's that's next to this brown, because I just want to start painting in over this. So I'm going to maybe pick this blue, and you'll see the blue changed over here. That's my color I'm working with. And I'm just going to, I don't know if this is going to work. It might not work at all. So sometimes it's just a matter of trial and error. Yeah. I'm trying to do the path of least resistance. Now, a lot of people who are more advanced may say, oh, you're just, you're ruining the detail and the pixels and all that. But in my line of work, I'm a portrait photographer, and I need sellable images, and I'm not a fashion photographer where every little detail needs to be preserved. So I always look at the easiest thing that will make my client happy, and they're not going to notice if there's a little detail missing. So I will say that disclaimer. So like I said, this may or may not work. This may look too painterly, and I'm not just taking one color and painting it all. I'm taking a little from here, paint, a little from here, paint, a little from here, paint. And it may or may not work, but we're going to try it. Take some of these darker ones because there's shadows down here. See how there's a shadow there?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to mimic that. And if I pull back, you really can't see that. If I turn the layer off, which is like pulling that cellophane away, you really can't tell.
Yeah, it looks good.
Right? So that was a very easy way to fake it. A more complicated way would be to grab your clone stamp tool and to try and clone that area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually one I fiddled with a little bit, but have yet to master, obviously.
Did you want to see me do the clone stamp there?
Yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to turn this layer off, the paint layer, and I'm going to just create another layer down here by clicking the new layer. I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to control plus to get closer. And I'm going to go to the clone stamp tool. And same thing here. I'm going to go in the low flow because I want to blend things. So I think between 20 and 40% would be good. We'll go in at 30. So this again means the longer I hold down, the more it's going to come through. But I like the option to just slowly. The thing about the clone stamp tool with fine detail is to just take your time and go slow and do small changes when you're working with detail. Big things, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to look at the lines here. I'm going to click on the edge, and I want the edge to stay here. I'm just going to move up a little bit. I'm going to see what color should be here maybe, and I would say maybe this blue. I'm going to select right here and then move the mouse a little bit. Now I have to be careful. If I keep going back, forth, it's going to come on heavier like paint, more heavier. And I want things to look natural. So I'm going to grab a little there, and then I'm going to go up here. The thing about the clone stamp tool and the way people sometimes make mistakes is they don't pay attention to lines. So if I had clicked here and then went up here, that looks, I mean, honestly, you really can't tell because feathers go 1,000 directions. But in another instance, this would be a tell that something was amiss.
Right,
so
right.
I'm going to Control Z and undo that. And I want to keep this line, somewhere in here, move up, maybe click this line, bring it over, move it up. I'm going to go up here, little down a little bit. Same, it's just little baby steps. So that's pretty much got rid of it. So if I turn this layer on and off, you'll see lots of little baby steps.
Yeah.
And it's gone.
That looks great.
Yeah. Do you think you could do that?
Yeah, I do. I do think I actually, well, I like both of them, but I was never able to make the paint option look as nice as you did, but I actually think I like this one even better.
Yeah, the paint option, the way to do that is to just keep sampling different colors. People get stuck in one color and just keep painting, and you just have to keep sampling another color to blend, just like if you were working with real paint.
Right.
Okay, so I think I can quickly show you maybe one other thing, and because I think I should have looked at the clock when we started, but I have no idea. This first episode might be a little longer than I anticipated, but we're learning, right? So it's all good.
Yes.
Did you want one other? Oh, okay. Let me show you. Let me show you if say you made a mistake here, but you realize you made a mistake a couple of strokes back, and you don't want to click here because it'll undo all of the other strokes that you made.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So all you have to do is you just make a layer mask. And what that does is, think of it like taking scissors to your cellophane. So you're cutting through and showing what's beneath it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I'm going to create this layer mask.
Okay.
And I'm going to, the layer mask is white, and all you have to do is go to your paintbrush, and you're going to paint with the opposite color, which is black. So anything you paint will reveal what's underneath. So think of it like you're cutting through the layers, the layer to reveal what's underneath.
Yeah.
So if I just start brushing, I'm going to brush at 100%. Now the same thing applies. If you just want to lightly reveal, you would just do a lower opacity or a lower flow. But I want to fully see what was below. So I'm just going to draw a line with the black. And you'll see there it is coming through. Do you see it?
Yep.
Now let's see. I went, I like didn't really actually want to do that. Just go back to your colors and switch back to white. The hotkey for that, by the way, is X. You can, oh, why didn't that work? Am I lying? Huh. Well, I might have lied there.
That on you.
That's weird. Huh. Okay, well, I'll have to, let me just see here. That's very strange. Okay, I'll have to look into that. But let's say you said, oh no, I didn't really want to do that. Then you could just go back. You're literally just like you're sealing it back up again.
It's just flip-flopping it.
Yep. So that works out great in a lot of different scenarios. Let's just say I decide that I want to paint his whole beak black. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm in paint already. I'm just going to change the color. I'm going to use the color that's there because there is some blue hue there. So I'm going to just select, I'm going to click the Alt button and select a color that's close to it. I'm just going to paint all of that. And let's say I went, oh, that was a really bad idea. But I liked it maybe up here. I'm going to just layer mask it and switch to black. And I can just paint away the part that I don't like and keep what I do like.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. And you can put a layer on anything. I can put a layer on this background copy if I wanted to. And I could draw back our branch.
The branch?
Yeah. So I wanted to show half of it for some oddball reason. I could. Or I could not. Oh, I know why X isn't working. Because I have it set to be the stop feature on my recording, which I'm hoping it didn't do.
Oh no!
That would be really bad. Oh, let's hope it's still recording. I think it still is because I see these like little dots. Okay, so what's next? I think that was there anything else? And did that help you? And do you have questions?
No, it definitely helped. I think my only question is, so when you click to start a new layer, it just automatically knows, and everything you do, you're working within that layer until you create a new one or change something, right?
It knows which layer you're working on based on which layer you're clicked on.
Okay, so if you click new layer, does it automatically like put you there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And you can name your layers. So these automatically will layer in the order you add them, but you can just double click on that and and change it. So this background copy was really our branch. So I can double click on that and type, branch and just hit enter. And now, because when you get a lot of layers, it can be confusing. Like, oh gosh, I don't really remember what this layer is. And without having to turn them all on and off to see, you can just make yourself a note that that's the layer that has the branch on it. And you can turn it on and off and you can see there's the branch on and off.
Ah, okay.
And let's say that, see, now I don't remember which one was the one that was one of these was the paint layer. I think that was, let me turn them all off actually. Okay, so this was our branch. Okay, this was the paint layer, which we decided not to do. We'll leave that off. Okay, this was our clone layer. So we can call this the clone layer. And now let's say because these two were very similar because it was the branch off the bird, you could actually put these layers together by just dragging and bringing it down. And you can group them by hitting Control and clicking them both, and then hit Control G, and that puts them into a group. So that way it just makes things cleaner. So if you turn this on and off, it gets them both.
Okay.
And you can hit the little down arrow, and there's both your layers there.
Sure. Huh.
Is there anything that I did that was confusing?
No, I think I just have to like fiddle with it and, get comfortable doing it. But that was great.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm
All
excited
right.
to try it all now.
First episode in the books.
It's done.
We learned a little cloning today and a little painting, and I would say thanks for watching, and thank you for being a part of my sort of experiment to see if people find this interesting or helpful.
Thank you, Sam. I definitely found it helpful. So you've got one person at least.
Yay, one viewer. Sweet. And we're back. So what I realized is, and again, this is me being, first episode issues. So I realized that I ended the episode without showing Lynn how to properly save this image. And in the process, Lynn sent me an image that was really color distorted, and I realized, I didn't give her the right instructions. So, that S was a word that I don't want to, use on the show. So just use your imagination. Okay. Try to make this PG, folks. Okay. So because we started this image in Lightroom, we want to bring it back to Lightroom and export from there so that the color profile stays the same. If you had started this from a folder on your computer, you could just save it in Photoshop and be done. But because we launched this from Lightroom, we want to send it back to Lightroom. And really, you can do that in a couple of ways. If you want to preserve your Photoshop layers, you can go in and save this as a PSD, which is the Photoshop file. So if you reopen it from Lightroom again, all of the layers will be intact. However, these are huge files, and if you don't think you need the layers again, then you don't need to do that. The other option is to just save it as a TIFF, which is what is the default setting. So you can just click that. Now, so if you want to save this as the TIFF, all you really need to do is click save, and it will default as a TIFF. You don't need to go into save as unless you want to save it as something else. So if I click save, I'm not sure what just happened. It's like live TV. Okay, here it is. So it's actually just bringing it in now. If you look down here, it's a grayed out box.
Yeah.
So I'm back in Lightroom. It brought me right back to Lightroom. And now it's actually, here's the one before, and here's the edit. And you can see because the branch is disappearing there. So now that it's back in Photoshop, now let's say I said, I really want to edit out this other branch over here, which I believe you did in your edit, which I'll show at the end of this, because you very skillfully went in after our lesson and did an edit. How did you find that, by the way?
It was way easier than anything I've been trying to do before.
Oh, good.
It was way better that way. So I definitely learned a lot and it helped. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So everyone, you guys will get to see the edit that she did immediately after our lesson. So
I couldn't wait to practice.
I'm so glad. So now that we have this edit, two things. You can export this as a JPEG, which is what I suggest. TIFF files are very, very large, and they're not really the standard of what's sort of used for sharing on the web or even printing if you're printing general sizes. Once you go really, really big, you can use TIFF files. But in general, you're going to save as a JPEG. But before we do that, just to give you some instruction, if you wanted to take this back into Photoshop after you did your edit, you could right click on the edited one and do the same thing you did before, edit in Photoshop. Okay. So now that we have this photo, we want to go to File. We want to go to Export. And now have you seen this yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is tell it, oh, look, you can see that I just had my 40-year-old birthday, my 40th birthday, and my last photo I exported was a birthday photo of me.
Happy birthday!
Yay! I mean, I'm 25.
Right. The 40 was a typo. That's not...
I'm not 40. So anyway, you're going to pick your folder. You can pick a subfolder if you like. You can give the name and hit export, and then it will be in the folder that you specified. Now, oops, I just accidentally changed the file name, but you can use a custom name and a original file number. You can do a custom name and it will automatically sequence them for you. So you just pick whatever one that makes most sense for you. you can try the different ones and see what you like. I usually just do custom name, and then it will automatically number them as it goes through. So once you have what you want, you can go down here. If you are resizing for Facebook, for example, the size that you want for Facebook is 2048 pixels on the long side. That is the maximum size Facebook allows. And if you upload anything larger than that, it will automatically rescale to that. And when it rescales, it actually sort of damages the quality. It makes the picture. You hear people on Facebook complaining, oh, Facebook murdered my photo. It's just they uploaded it at a higher pixel count than what Facebook wanted. So Facebook took it upon themselves to adjust it. But if you upload it at their maximum, they usually leave it alone. So for Facebook and social media, you can do resize to the 2048 pixels on the long side. If your photo is smaller than that, I always say, please don't make my photo bigger to like accompany that. I mean, to, not accompany, to, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, you know what I'm saying. I don't want it.
Size.
Yes. Yeah. And then just export, and that will export as a JPEG, which is right here. File. This should be your default, so you shouldn't have to do anything here.
Yeah.
And color space, you want to make sure that says sRGB, which should also be your default. So as long as you're exporting your photo from here into your folder, everything should look great. Just don't start in Lightroom and finish in Photoshop and just save in Photoshop to your computer, because you will have a photo that is very confusing when you start trying to use it. In certain formats, it will look really bizarre. The colors will look weird and you won't understand why. And that happened to me for a long time in the beginning, and I didn't have anyone to tell me what was wrong, and I had to go search in Google for days to figure out what happened. So I'm trying to save you some time.
Yes.
And so, yeah. So start in Lightroom, end in Lightroom, start in Photoshop, you can end in Photoshop. So does that help?
Yeah, that helps and makes perfect sense.
Okay, perfect. So now we're really ending our episode. You will now get to see Lynn's beautiful photo. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
Bye.